Hello, humans. I'm very pleased to let you know that I recently went on an adventure to the highest mountain peak of the world, where I met the wisest man in the world. And I am now offering you a course of complete and total transformation. You can transform your body, transform your mind, transform your wife and kids and dogs into the perfect beings that you always knew deep down you were. None of that's true, of course, but the idea of transformation is so sexy. It is so incredible. And I love the symbolism of transformation. But let's just talk for a second about how seductive the idea. I mean, the magnetism and draw of that concept of transforming, transcending. I mean, this is the inspiration behind like millions of Phoenix tattoos, like really bad Phoenix tattoos, because for whatever reason, it's just a hard object to capture. And if you have a Phoenix tattoo, please send me a photo on Instagram at Sam Lamott or at hellohumans.co, because I collect them. They're fantastic. And I love the message behind it. I'm not shitting on the concept of a phoenix. But this idea that you can change, whether it be through alchemy, turning lead into gold, or through ritual, turning regular person into, hero, or through intervention of the gods, creating a demigod. And it's an attractive force. And it's something that you actually need to look out for as you go out into the world, or people selling this idea of transformation and being more than you actually are and somehow becoming that thing you always knew you were. And I hope you know by now, I'm a massive fan in the journey of transformation and of improvement being a part of your odyssey of life. I really love it. It guides me, gives me purpose, gives me things to do. So this is not a call to apathy. It is just to recognize the seductive power of transformation. What I've come to realize and appreciate recently is what's most pulling, what's most desirable is not always the best strategy. So, and I'm going to use transformation as an example. I think more often than not, the idea of transformation, whether it be personal transformation, political revolution, changing one thing into a completely new thing, more often than not, is a form of escapism, a form of fantasy, chasing utopia, and it can be a safe and fun, imaginative exploration. But as I study the people who I admire most, I've noticed that they're not revolutionaries. And they're not reborn in some transformative moment into the person that I've come to admire. But they're incrementalists. They're gradualists. They move methodically and slowly, changing things in reality one little bit at a time until we notice how great that they've become. But what we've missed by not following their own personal journey is how that came about, how that after-school program that now helps hundreds of kids started in the smallest way. How the new center median that totally made your drive back into your town way more enjoyable and beautiful since it got redesigned started with an idea and meetings and arguments and back and forth and city planning. And I think I've become an incrementalist. I think that's what I believe, in small changes as consistently as possible over long periods of time, grounded in reality and able to adjust to the unintended consequences of every single action, whether noble or treacherous, that you take. I think this is the way. And so in terms of transformation, I think I'm actually more attracted to the idea. I think a better word to let guide you, if you're like me and if you like to hang on to words as ideals and guidestones and helping you through the next chapter of time, a good word for me, let's just say, is a reformer. Now, the difference between transform and reform, it might seem the same, but to me, the big difference is that to be reformed includes the parts you already have. It's the process of laying things out on the table, taking stock of what you have, and figuring out what you can make with what you have, and maybe what is attainable quickly. Today's guest comes to us with a new name, relatively recently, like within the last few weeks, Indigo, which they gave themselves after reflection and contemplation, and it seems to be a physical manifestation of a new chapter they are beginning in a name that they want to be addressed as in this new chapter. There's someone I've known for a while, and I first met Indigo as Laura. And this human has been a trusted friend, a respected guide, and someone that I've always admired for their discipline, for their ability to move forward, to grow, and to continue growing with a passion. I just want to add a little footnote to anybody that might hear about Indigo's journey and be thrown off by it because of the state of the culture war, for lack of a better word. This program has and always will try to be as apolitical as possible and a watering hole where people from all different ideologies and schools of thoughts can gather. Both of us, me and today's guest, Indigo, are firm believers in the take what you like and leave the rest. There is nothing in this conversation that we are trying to force down your throat or believe that you need to believe. But I don't want you to miss out on this human who I love dearly and respect dearly and have wanted on this program for a very long time, just because you think the conversation is going to go a certain way. It's not. This conversation is about the human experience, about the process of being born into a world you didn't ask to be born into, and navigating that world, figuring out strategies for how to get through the tough times, how to enjoy the good times, how to build relationships that, whether lasting or not, fill your soul. And this is about the same thing that we're all going through. And I hope that you stick around no matter what your beliefs, and trust that I claim no spiritual, moral, or intellectual superiority to you. I have no interest in changing your beliefs. I only try to present suggestions and try to get suggestions from the guests of things that I might like to try myself. So without further ado, here is an incredible conversation with a human who has a serious gift of learning as you go, of trying not to make the same mistakes over and over again, and growing in a way that makes this conscious life of being a human a little bit richer every day. Here's my conversation with Indigo. Indy.
Hi.
Hello.
Hi.
I'm going to preface this by saying that you are one of my dear friends and like soul friends that I've known for years. We just kind of compared notes. It sounds like it's been years since I've seen you.
Yeah.
But I feel like if there is those relationships where you just kind of can pick up where you left off, we definitely had a friendship like that.
Yeah.
So it's cool to get to have you on this program and also get to capture that kind of moment of reconnecting live.
Yeah.
You just changed your name.
I did.
I'm going to adjust to that.
Okay.
I keep wanting to call you your old name, but one of the things, especially when you haven't seen someone, like so much change can happen that I'm trying to stay very open to, like, I know your spirit. I don't know your latest persona, of like how you're walking through the world these days.
Yeah.
So I'm going to start the program the same way I always do. Also, you're one of the youngest people ever on the program.
Yes.
I am an ageist. I like the old and wise.
Yeah.
We met each other through recovery. I think you have slightly less time than me, but you were so disciplined and worked so hard in development that I always looked at you as like an elder in some ways. And that's the funny thing about time on something is, you can do 10 years slowly, or you can do a more intense track. And you were a very intense person, and just somebody who I really admired the integrity of your work and how seriously you took your own development. And so,
yeah, thanks
for agreeing to be on this.
Yeah, of course. It's ever since you started doing this, I've always been so intrigued and inspired. And similarly, like, your creativity and your mind and the way that you express yourself have always been ways that I looked at you in admiration. So I'm stoked to be here.
So, Indy, I start the show the same way.
Okay.
Who are you?
I love that question. Oh, it's good. Yeah, who am I? I'm a queer, sober person who is always seeking playfulness and joy and growth and evolution of my own spirit. And I'm at the core of my being the type of person who just wants to, like, do good in the world. Yeah, that's what comes to mind for me.
And if we could just jump right in, I got reminded of how much I wanted to reconnect with you when you announced on Facebook, like, hey, I've actually come back from some soul work. I forget how you worded it. And I want to go by a different name.
Yeah.
Indigo.
Yeah.
Or Indy. I love Indy, if that's okay to call you.
Yeah.
I was like, oh man, tell me about that. That's something that I'm interested in.
Yeah.
I think names are an interesting concept because it's how the outside world interacts with you. It's like the first level of interaction is like, what are you, like, what, this is Ken, right? This is Indy. This is Sam. And you don't pick your name.
Yeah.
Most of the time.
Yeah.
So I'm intrigued. I have several friends who have done kind of like a name change. Hey, can you refer to me as this?
Yeah.
Find the process really interesting. I hope that it becomes more mainstream. I have an alter ego. I have a different name that I call myself. I don't share it publicly or ask other people to call it to me. It's just I like to interact with myself on that level. But could you just jump in and tell us how did Indigo come to be?
Yeah, so I'd been sort of contemplating changing my name for a while. My original legal name was Larissa, and my entire life it's never felt like me. And, you know, I would hear stories from my parents about how the name came to be or how they started to call me Lara. And I was like, that's cool for you. But it never felt like me. And I think what ended up happening is about 2 years ago, I started feeling into my gender identity. About 5 years ago, I started doing some inner masculine, inner feminine work and understanding those parts of myself and how they interact, how they integrate, how they manifest, how they come through my human form into the world. And I started to really understand that I was all of that. I was the entire spectrum of masculine and feminine expression. And as I stepped into my gender identity as non-binary or gender fluid, I realized too that part of that process for me was going to include so much more beyond taking on that identity and like really stepping into that and changing my pronouns and all of the things that kind of come with that for some folks. And I took this past 7 months has really been, I think, pivotal in my own evolution as a human being, because I've really taken a step back from a lot of things in my life and looked closely at myself and how I show up and what feels good and expressive in my human form. And I also took a sabbatical from my day job. I took 2 months off. And during that time, I decided to play with names. You know, I decided to just play. And I would do I don't know if this is typical, but I would do Google searches like gender neutral names that start with L, or gender neutral names that start with, whatever alphabet letter I wanted to choose that day. And nothing was really sticking. And then I was in a cafe during my time off, and I was sort of just people watching because that's kind of what I love to do. And I closed my eyes for a minute to just breathe in the smells and hear the sounds. And this name flashed in front of my eyes, Indigo. And I was like, whoa.
It's a cool name.
I was taken aback. First of all, I wasn't expecting that, but it just flashed in front of my eyes. And I sort of chewed on it for a little bit. And then I went on a vision quest, a queer vision quest. And during that time I had...
What could you describe that process a tiny bit? I'm curious.
Going on the vision quest?
Yeah, the queer vision quest.
Yeah. Okay, so there's a institute called Animus Institute. And Bill Plotkin, who's one of the founders of that institute, wrote a book called Soulcraft. And I read Soulcraft several years ago as part of my Purpose Guides training. And I've always wanted to go on a vision quest. Ever since reading that book, I've always wanted to go on a vision quest. I never had the time. I never made the time to embark on that journey. And when I knew I was going on sabbatical, I went on their website and tried to see if they had any programs during my time off. And they were doing the first ever queer vision quest. And it's 12 days in the wilderness, and it's
mostly alone.
4 days solo fasting. And you have 5 days pre with a group and a few days post with the group. 3 guides, not always 3 guides, but there are guides there who are steeped in the work of soul encounter, as they call it. Basically going deeply inside and seeing what's there and working with those parts. So there's a lot of different types of work that take place in that container. And I'd really wanted to try this queer vision quest. They had no spots available when I went to sign up. And I was like, well, damn, guess I'm not going on the first ever queer vision quest. And so basically what happened is I said, okay, higher power. I really want to do this. I feel like I'm supposed to do this. So I'm going to make space. I moved my sabbatical dates to cover the dates that they were supposed to be doing the quest. And I said, if it's supposed to happen, make it happen. And I was in Amsterdam for work and got an email saying, hey, spot opened up. Do you want it? Okay, yeah. So I
You were in Amsterdam?
Yeah, I was in Amsterdam for my day job.
Wow.
Yeah. Yeah. So I went on this quest, and during the quest, I had the group use exclusively Indigo or Indie.
Oh, cool.
To test it out.
Yeah.
And it was the most delicious experience. It just felt so, like, in my bones, in my body, it just felt so affirming. And I knew then, yep, I'm going to come back into my life and back into the world from the deep wilderness. And
that wasn't last week, was it?
I got back a week ago.
Wait, so this Vision Quest happened a week ago?
So the Vision Quest ended July 4th. So a couple weeks ago. But I returned. I spent a few days traveling after in my Sprinter van.
You have a Sprinter van now?
Yeah, I do.
God, I got to go online more.
It's not that exciting, but yeah, you should.
That sounds very exciting.
It is, yeah. I got a Sprinter van. It's built out. Decided to do traveling before and after. I spent 20 days in the van. Yeah.
And then, wow, I didn't realize how recent this all was. Mm-hmm. I knew the name change, but.
Yeah.
And so can you describe kind of what's it like navigating through the world? I mean, there's obviously some adjustment period for all of us.
Yeah. It's interesting because I feel like I've stepped into Indigo, I've stepped into Indie, and I can feel, it feels like I'm stepping into the person I was always supposed to step into in a way. And being able to share that and share my heart with people has been an interesting process. For the most part, folks' responses have been, wow, thanks for sharing. That name suits you so well. And then there's been a few instances where folks are like, oh, I like Larissa. I'm like, that's great for you. I think, but for the most part, it feels mostly like I get to step into this person that I was always supposed to step into. And it feels like, we change and evolve as humans, or at least I believe we change and evolve as humans, but there's always this like core part of us that's, if we allow it to, grows louder and louder, because it's always that thing that's always been deeply ingrained in who we are. And I feel like Indigo was always something that was always deeply embedded into the core of who I was from birth. So it feels like just so natural and so yummy, for lack of a better word, to be stepping into this name and have it feel so comfortable and cozy in my body.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, I am always fascinated with the process of transformation or reformation.
Yeah.
I actually
Reformation, love that.
Transformation's a very sexy word.
Yeah,
right?
Totally.
It's basically like I can leave all the shit I don't like behind.
Yeah, nope.
And now I can emerge as the new thing.
We like doing that, don't we?
And so for me, what feels more true is like reformation.
Yeah.
Like, what building blocks do I have?
Yeah.
What, to use our language, what character defects, what stuff is here that can't just be sloughed off.
Yeah.
How can I work with this though and make the best version I can with what I got?
Yeah.
Which is different for everybody.
Totally.
But I love when people take on the challenge of transformation or reformation or however people want to, and the renaming is in some sorts, it's a death and rebirth ceremony.
Totally.
Right? Yeah, I mean, it's been happening for thousands of years. And to say, I think I can jumpstart this process by just referring to myself differently.
Totally.
Right? Like it is a tool of some kind.
Yeah. Actually, I actually did a death and rebirth ceremony around the name.
I'm not surprised.
Of course not. Yeah. I did a ceremony where I laid in a grave. And
did you write a eulogy?
I did not write a eulogy. I spoke one.
Yeah.
It didn't feel, I really wanted to be present with what was happening and coming through for me spiritually and physically in my body. And so I spoke a eulogy. And, to your point about Reformation and taking an honest stock of all of who I am, including the dark parts, including the playfulness, the joy, all of the good parts, right? Quote unquote good parts. I got to be with all of that, and invite all of that to like witness this death and rebirth process. And yeah, I actually laid in a grave and I did a ceremony. And it felt symbolic, but more so than that, the act of physically doing that, I think helped as a catalyst for the process for me to come back and say, yes, this is me. And I feel it in my body. It feels real.
Yeah. I love the process of ritual and making things sacred.
Yeah.
I've actually been going to churches.
Nice.
They don't let me take communion.
Of course.
Because JC's not the Lord and Savior yet, at least
for you.
For me.
Yeah.
But it's interesting to go see how do people commune with the sacred to them? And what does this process look like to them?
Yeah.
And to take the ordinary and to make it something more is very fascinating to me.
Totally.
I've been talking to people who have been waiting until marriage to have sex. Going, what's that about? Tell me about that. And it's like they're trying to make this very normal part of the human function higher than that normal part. And so,
I get that.
Everybody, I think, has a desire for things to be meaningful and to matter.
Totally.
And to creatively take it into your own control and to figure out, like, how do I make this next chapter, the indie chapter, important? And to create ritual around it is just beautiful. And I have several healing rituals that I've done that I don't even share about yet.
Yeah.
Because I'm still relishing the moment. And it feels like I'm going to keep it until it's public.
Sure.
When it feels public on the inside, then I can share it, and I can't wait to share it. But for now, it's just like such this beautiful moment. I just, for somebody that's their whole life has been broadcast.
Yeah.
And I've journaled or blogged or podcast everything. It just felt like, ooh, this is really cool. I think I'm just going to keep this for a while.
Yeah. I think there's something really sacred about holding those truths close to you. And, I don't share all of the ritual. I won't share all of the ritual that I did out on the land during my quest, at least not yet. And I think there's something really sacred about holding that close until it feels like it could potentially be useful for someone else, in their process or whatever that ends up looking like.
Yeah. Well, we've had a long history. We hung out a lot for a period of time.
Yeah.
You were always somebody that I would call when things went wrong. I deeply valued your advice. There was like a confusing period where I was like in love with you. You were a lesbian at the time, so that was like a problem. I feel like we figured it out.
Yeah, we did. Yeah. We figured it out. We moved through it.
If we could back up a bit and just capture some of what your journey's been like. It's funny, the show, on some ways I want to be talking about things that are very tangible and helpful immediately, but the getting to know people, even people who you think you know really well on a deep level, there's lessons that come through that are not as direct.
Yeah.
But that, for me, I think it really helps to kind of like to learn fully who you are as a teacher and a friend and somebody who I have as counsel in my advice. it's a real joy to just get to know people and how they were formed, what their, to use a biblical term, what the genesis is, and how they became the person who they are.
Yeah.
So could you tell us kind of a bit of how indie came to be from the start?
Yeah. Well, first I just want to say that it's always really lovely to reconnect, especially with people like you, who I always, there are very few people in my sphere, my little universe, that I feel like I can step away from for several years and then reconnect, and it feels like no time has passed. So it feels really nice to
likewise.
Yeah, it feels really nice to like be in that space with you. And yeah, I always have valued and really cherished our friendship. So I just want to say that first.
Ditto.
Yeah, I think for me, you want me to talk a little bit about like pre getting sober, or?
Sure.
Okay.
Yeah, I'd love to.
Okay.
And that's part of how you got here.
Totally.
Right?
Yeah, it's 1,000%.
My falling on my face is like central to the.
Oh my God. Yeah, totally. Falling on my face like over and over again, basically. But yeah, no, I was like always a really deeply feeling person. Like I've always been deeply connected to my feelings, and for a long time, not really having tools for how to navigate that. I come from a family where, alcoholism was very present. I experienced a lot of trauma and abuse as a child. A lot of that trauma is like of a sexual nature, and a lot of the other trauma is just like inter-family turmoil,
Yeah.
And so I came from a really scary place of having a lot of feelings, being really sensitive, being really empathetic, even from a young age, and experiencing the bodily, mentally, spiritually, and emotionally sensations of like rage and anger from a really young age, and
terror
and absolute horror,
real
things
to be scared of.
Absolutely. Yeah. As a kid, I was really afraid of the dark because my trauma happened at night.
Yeah.
And for years, I just remembered this recently. For years, I prayed. Like, we were really religious, so I prayed to God, what my understanding of God was at the time. And for years, I prayed for God to take me in my sleep. I begged for death for years as a kid. And then, I spent, after that terror and that, just like my body, thank God for the way that my body reacted, because my body just went into full protection mode. Okay, we're going to block out these memories. And it was almost like, you see one part of a movie and then all of a sudden the screen goes black and then you watch a new movie. It was almost like the tape had shut itself down and wanted to start a new film. And that's how it felt for me. I've come to learn as an adult that that's like a pretty common trauma response. And so, I tried to move forward and block out all of the bad.
How'd you recover the memory? Therapy or?
Yeah, mostly therapy. I think I realized when I was around 20, I realized that there was a lot there that felt like it was a physical feeling. Things felt lodged in my body that I didn't understand. And I was also, at that point, like drinking a lot and going to a therapist to understand the dynamics of my relationships, the dynamics of why I couldn't keep my shit together, basically. I just kept hitting wall after wall. And
it's so wild to even think of you not keeping your shit together.
Yeah, no, my shit was very much not together.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And I for the most part, it was emotional. like from the exterior on paper, things looked good, right? Like I had a good job. I had, you know, a nice car. I was dating and things were seemingly going well, but on the inside, I was like absolutely falling apart and behind closed doors, you know, like having a lot of breakdowns and yeah, stuff like that. Yeah, I think I got exhausted, like existentially tired and emotionally exhausted and burnt out. And I wanted to understand what was lodged inside of me that like needed to be surfaced. And so I went and did a lot of talk therapy, which helped. And then I transitioned into like a lot of other modalities of like healing, and like surfacing some of the trauma. And it's been like a total process of just like peeling back layers of the onion, you know, like, okay, what's there? Okay. Am I done yet? Nope. What's there? Okay. Am I done yet? So yeah, that's kind of how it all.
Wow. I am I don't know if you saw, like, I'm getting emotional. I'm this is so inappropriate. I'm very selfishly feeling jealous.
Okay. And
sorry.
Why?
Because I have whole records just deleted, right? File not found, no access to the memories of certain periods.
Yeah.
So I have like giant chunks of my life just relayed to me secondhand. And so, yeah, that's why I kind of jumped on that. Like, wait, how'd you go back and get the memory? It's just not an experience I've gotten yet.
Yeah. I
mean, it's terrible memories to retrieve.
For sure.
I guess it was just part of me that got distracted and the jealousy of it. You know? Like, feeling sorry for myself.
Classic.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I mean, honestly, I think that we get access to the files when our body is ready.
Yeah.
You know?
So you start working through traditional therapy and alternative modalities.
Yeah.
When does the self-destruction catch up to you, or when do you decide to change in that regard?
To stop self-destructing?
Yeah. Or stop drinking. I've only known you sober.
Yeah. So I think there were two pivotal events in my life that happened prior to me getting sober. One was, I had a best friend, who I worked with, and, you know, we hung out a lot. I saw him as a brother, and, you know, I didn't have very many positive male-bodied figures in my life. Like I didn't have a lot of good examples of what healthy masculinity looked like growing up. And, you know, barring very few examples, but they were people I didn't get to spend that much time with. And so he was a best friend. He was like a brother to me. He felt safe. And the year before I stopped drinking, he and I went out for my birthday, and you know, my partner at the time and I drove home drunk, and he called me. He couldn't find his car. He was very confused. He didn't know where he was. We offered to go back to get him, and he said, no, it's okay. I found my car. And I never heard from him again. He didn't wake up the next day. And, you know, I found myself really questioning, like, why him? And, you know, it ended up that he passed from hypertensive heart disease, but I guess the drinking and I think he was like smoking other things that night, was too much on the body. And, yeah, I just felt such a immense amount of like guilt and shame, around the fact that like he didn't wake up and I did. And I didn't sleep for weeks, and I was afraid that I wouldn't wake up. I just felt like it was my fault, you know? And as a good alcoholic will do, you know, we'll vow to like make a change.
Yeah. Hell yeah.
I was like, I'm going to change, you know, I'm going to like not be so crazy. And that lasted for basically no time at all. And then a year passed, and my grandmother, who is someone I spent summers with as a child, who like was my savior through the period of time that I was being like sexually molested. You know, she was someone I went to have a safe haven during the summer. And, you know, she didn't know this, but she was someone who was she was a really huge part of my formative years, and someone that I saw as safe. And I tell people today, she's the reason why I know joy and love today. You know, she like instilled that in me as a child. And the year after Josh died, she accidentally fell and hit her head and had an aneurysm and was in a coma. And when I went to the hospital to be with her, I picked up my dad on the way, and, you know, he was still very much in his disease. And I got to see right directly in my face what it was going to look like for me in 50 years if I didn't get my shit together. And it was really scary. You know, he asked me to take him to his drug dealer's house. You know, he didn't have a license at the time, after I think probably 4 DUIs, super erratic behavior. And, you know, this is in the midst of me beginning to mourn the death of the person lying in the bed in front of me. This person who I'd come to cherish and really adore. And I felt like my heart was being ripped out of my chest. And I was like being faced with the fact of, this is what your life is going to look like if you don't actually make a change, you know?
Yeah. How would you describe what it felt like it was going to look like?
Lonely and dark and chaotic. The chaos, it's like this biting static chaos, you know, this like uncontrollable life. It just felt like an uncontrollable, chaotic mess, and I didn't want any part of it. You know, life is chaotic enough.
Yeah.
And when I saw that, you know, my dad, he was like taking me to my drug dealer's house, and I was like, absolutely not. We literally just left the hospital. And I know that you want to soothe in one way, but I'm not available for that. And, you know, at the time he lashed out at me because of my sexuality, and he said some mean things to me in the car, and we were in the middle of LA, and I pulled over. I said, you can get out now.
Good for you.
I don't know how he got home, but
it's not your problem.
No. He got home. So, so I think that was the turning point for me. I made the decision to stop drinking at that point, and I didn't stop doing all things. Like, I continued to smoke weed for about 1.5 years, nice. Which was not great, just because I was like still like trying to numb out. But, you know, I'd stopped drinking, and I think initially I thought, oh, I'll just stop for 1 year and get my life together, and then I'm out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Me too.
Yeah.
Yeah. I was like convinced this was just going to get my shit together.
Yeah.
And then, I sobered up. And realized like the alcohol was like one of the very small problems of the picture.
You're like, oh, wait a minute. There's so much more under the surface.
It was just the most outward symptom of the problem.
Yeah. Yeah.
And like that's the track. You stopped drinking and then quit weed a 1.5 years later. And
well, you know, not totally. I quit drinking, and I started going, I was in Al-Anon at the time, and, you know, really wanting to focus on all the qualifiers in my life, not really knowing that I was also one of those qualifiers. And yeah, I was like in Al-Anon working steps, and I decided to go to an AA meeting to like better understand the alcoholics in my life. And I thought that I was just like taking a break from drinking. And then I went to a meeting, and I sat at this meeting, and I had the most powerful experience, because I was like relating to these complete strangers more so than I related to like anyone else I had ever known in my life. And I was like, what is happening? And so I realized that I needed to be there. And I was like, I'm the type of person, I used to be the type of person, I should say, that like has to get into like so much pain that there's no other solution but surrender. And, you know, that's changed for me over the years. But at the time I was like, oh, I need to be here. And yet I'm still not willing to like give up the death grip on these like parts of me that want to continue numbing out. I don't know if that makes sense.
Yeah. Dig deeper. I want to keep, that's a good vein.
Yeah. I wanted to like strangle, this is a weird way to describe it, but the way the vision that comes up for me is like, I really wanted to like wrestle and strangle the like, there were parts of me that were screaming for help. And I really wanted to like shut those parts and wrestle with them and like put them in a box somewhere deep down in the like attic of my body or soul. Right. And I was not willing to open myself up to that type of vulnerability. It was like too much of a risk for me at the time.
Yeah.
And so that's why I kept smoking weed. I was like not ready. My whole life, honestly, in recovery, mostly has been baby steps, like one baby step at a time.
Me too.
Yeah. I'm actually really grateful for that because, you know, I'm conditioned to want things instantly. Like I want food. I press a button on my phone and food gets delivered 30 minutes later, right? Like we're so used to things happening instantaneously. And I'm actually really grateful for the lesson of like such slow progression and baby steps throughout my like time in recovery, because it's taught me that, you know, not to sound cheesy, but it's taught me that like growth and reformation as a human, like happens incrementally in small steps over time. And so like I learned that lesson through trying to like wrangle my dark parts and like keep them closed in a box somewhere for so long, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
What, when did you finally like quit weed? Like that feels like a big moment of kind of like a commitment to like, okay, because here's the way I conceptualize it.
Yeah.
For me as like a hardcore drug addict, hard spirits drinking person, there's a big difference between obliteration and numbing out, right?
Totally.
And they're all part of the same vein that we're talking about.
Yeah.
But when I see people who aren't self-destruction experts like I am, you know, me, when I would go drinking or using, often ended up with people carrying me and stuff. You know, it was like not
physically,
yeah.
Oh
like
man.
I crawled my way home from Polk Street to the Tenderloin one time.
That's
like literally crawled. And it was the type of, you know, that's the type of neighborhood where nobody stopped me.
Well, of course, because
just and made it home, didn't black out. I wasn't actually much of a blackout drinker, but and then the person who, you know, hates their job, goes to their job, comes home, smokes weed, wakes up, does it all again. And now you're in this really bad, stagnant cycle. Like, you know, I think which is incredibly hard to get out of.
Oh, yeah.
Because whether you're drinking beer or smoking weed, the problem, I'm not anti-weed or anti-beer.
Yeah.
What I am anti is avoiding the signals of your animal body, your intuition. And so if you never get a chance to realize like, wow, I don't like this relationship, or wow, I don't like this job, or you know what, the whole way I'm going through the world is like not a great match for me. I should probably reorganize.
Yeah.
If you keep rolling over those feelings with chemicals that allow you to either become complacent or like that's the danger of weed to me, is it makes what's not okay to you.
Yeah.
Right. And so you can be in a very not okay situation. You might have these like burning dreams and aspirations, and the fact that you're ignoring these aspirations and not going for it are going to end up making you sick one day.
Yeah.
Like it's going to end in you getting really not well.
Yeah.
But you're just casually stamping out that fire every single night.
Yeah. Well, it's like our protector. It's like, the way that I think about it is those are my protector parts that are afraid of taking risk because they think that with risk comes danger. And so they shut that shit down.
Yeah.
You know, it's like, it's like, I want to use the word ego, but it's not totally the ego. It's our protector parts, you know, it's the little versions, what I believe to be the little mini versions of us from, you know, our past that, are like, no, that's a risk, and risk equals danger, and danger equals death. You know, like it's real quick.
Yeah.
Risk equals danger equals death. And all of a sudden all of these core desires and aspirations for your life are like shut down because of these little parts that have, for me at least, been stowed away and not looked at or acknowledged or celebrated or thanked my whole life, you know? So that's the way I think about it, is like, for me in those moments, or as I was getting sober or stopping numbing out, I was just so fucking tired of hating myself. I knew there was love, and I knew there was potential, and I knew there was possibility. I knew there was all this like bright light, and, you know, that was being reflected to me by, you know, people that I would meet. Oh, you're so inspiring or whatever. But I didn't believe any of that stuff, you know, and I couldn't look at myself in the mirror. And I think I got to the point where I was like, I'm just fucking done. And I just got so tired that I was just fucking done.
Wow. And you just quit?
Well, ish.
Ish is all right.
Ish,
we'll take ish.
Yeah, I mean, sort of. I had this moment. It's interesting. I was at an Avicii concert, and
in San Francisco?
No, at the Hollywood Bowl.
Oh, okay.
I wish. Yeah, no, I was in LA, and
I was like, we might have ended up
I
at
know.
the same concert. Yeah.
I wouldn't be surprised.
No, I wouldn't.
Yeah. I was at an Avicii concert, you know, I was high. It was a beautiful, beautiful concert. And, but I think what I noticed is there were like people, I was with my best friend, and there were people around us that were super high, like super duper high, and not on weed. It was like they were doing other drugs. And I think what I realized in that moment was that like, I want to feel this way without having some sort of altering substance in my body, like, because I know it's possible. There was like a moment of recognition and knowing that it's possible, but I haven't ever given myself that opportunity. And so that night, I went to bed, I woke up the next day, and I called my sponsor and I got honest, you know, because I'd never been honest about it before. I was like, oh, by the way.
Oh, you were in a year and a half of lying.
Yeah, you know,
Nice.
because that's what we do.
Hell yeah.
Yeah, and then I got honest, and it was like, you know, I felt like I was keeping this like delicious little secret, and it felt good to keep it for a while, and then it didn't feel good to keep it. And then when I set that secret free, I experienced like not just mental, emotional freedom, but I actually felt physically in my chest, like almost like the rock had been taken out, you know, like the weight of this rock was like lifted.
I love how you touched on that. It like felt good to keep a secret. I think that's probably just as valid of a part of the healing process.
Yeah.
Is, you know, there's some part of you that was like, oh yeah, I'm going to keep self-medicating until I know it's safe.
Yeah.
And just to go out on a limb and kind of guess.
Yeah.
That's kind of what it feels like. And then there was a time where you're like, okay, I'm ready.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah. I don't know if I ever felt like it was safe to not keep the secret. I think that I just got tired of the way that it was weighing on me.
Yeah.
I was like, maybe this isn't safe, but I believe that I believe that if I'm so exhausted by this, that by not holding it, I can experience a little bit of freedom, then it's worth the like risk to not feel safe. I don't know if that makes sense, but yeah, I don't know if I've ever made a decision in like at least in early recovery and getting sober because I felt like it was safe. I think I just got tired, and I was like not willing to be that deep in my own self-hatred anymore.
One of the things, so it's funny to hear earlier when you're saying like, oh, I didn't have it together. And like to hear you describe somebody that would like do things loosely. Because I've only known you as like very straight-laced, high and tight, you know, almost militaristic and discipline.
Yeah.
And doing what you say you're going to do. And so if we were talking and you said, oh yeah, I'm going to go journal on that. I'll get back to you with what I think. The next time we met, you would have that page written out.
Yeah.
So you were a doer of what you said you were going to do.
Yeah.
And I was wondering, you know, integrity, but more so that, because I feel like I'm good with integrity. I feel like for the most part, if you put a camera on me 24/7, there's not going to be too many glaring, like, whoa moments. There'd be some. Some. But I don't think it would be like drastic. There would be nothing where I'd be like freaked out that people might know.
Yeah. Your show would not make it onto MTV.
But I am interested in the discipline aspect and the going from a not disciplined being to a disciplined being.
Yeah.
And what that process looked like for you. Because it seems like you've done so much consciously, like where you've like set out to make a change and made a change.
Yeah.
And that's wild to me.
Yeah.
So I don't know if this brings up any stories or things that you could share in terms of your growth.
Yeah. You know, I think I've always been guided by this light of knowing that there's some part of me within me that can do better or be better. And I've always been, to an extent, guided by that. And also too, in early recovery, I had to really stick with people who said yes a lot to, like, not just recovery, but like choosing life, you know? And I remember one moment in early recovery, I was like working the steps and working with a sponsor and and like I would get to the fourth step and fire my sponsor every time because I didn't want to look at myself.
Hell yeah.
I was like, what? My part? There's nothing there, you know? Just like in so much denial. And I remember I was like in so much emotional and spiritual pain. And I met this woman who just like had this glow, this light. And she was like, are you willing to go to any lengths? And I'd heard that before, but for some reason I heard it differently that time. And I was like, yeah, I am. And she was like, okay, from now on, you're just going to say yes to everything recovery related. And, you know, time came where she was like, we're taking a conference into Soledad State Prison, or we're going to, you know, West Palm Beach to take a conference, you know, to the area because there's a lot of rehabs in the area. And I'd want to say no every time. And I just like made the decision to say yes. And even in instances where I was like, I don't know how I'm going to pay for that. And somehow by way of saying yes, it made it possible for those things to like manifest. And so what happened is I got experience-based faith in a higher power through the process of like doing things and saying yes instead of no. So I like opened.
Experience-based faith.
Yeah.
Where did you pick that up from?
Another person in the rooms.
That's fantastic.
Not original.
Empirical faith.
Yeah.
Experience faith. That's great.
Yeah. Cause like, you know, initially when I was like trying to come up with the concept of a higher power, I was like, I don't know, you know, the ocean is more powerful than me. That can be my higher power. Right. And then I started what I learned through that process of saying yes and like seeing how things unfolded by opening and saying yes. I was like, oh, that works for me. That's like higher power shit for me. And I guess the other thing that I want to say is that over time, you know, this like rigid approach to self-evolution and conscious like growth is I think really great. And also I've learned that I have to infuse play and joy and childlike fun into that process.
Yes.
For so long I
think we both lean towards very serious people.
Yes. Yeah. Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's only in the last, I would say only in the last like 5 years and a lot in the last 2 that I've just turned up the volume on the play and being silly and illuminating and activating those parts of myself that like, just want to have fun, you know? And that's helped me even more so than just being in the rigidity of being serious. And like growth is serious for sure. Like some of the work is serious, and looking at shadow parts of us is no joke. But how can I also infuse creativity and fun and play and childlike stuff in that? And I think that's been really, really pivotal for me.
Do you have something you could point to or share where you kind of intentionally took on a challenge, brought the typical indie spirit into it of like discipline and militarism?
Yeah.
But also worked play into it?
Yeah.
Does anything come to mind? Like a good example to share?
Yeah. So I think honestly that because it's been so recent, like the Vision Quest, when I went on this quest, I had this like, I had these like 2 intentions. You know, I was going to cultivate unconditional self-love, and I was going to like look at my fear of the dark right in the face. Those were the 2. I had no idea how that would look or what would happen. But what I ended up doing during the quest was like trying to play with the dark, you know, a little bit. And, you know, and the way that I did that was like I would dance with it, or I would play my drum or rattle, or like try to make music with it or stuff like that. And I think the other thing that comes to mind for me is I really value movement. So I've been trying to dance a lot more. And so what I would do on the quest was like sing or dance or like play music. And not like from a stereo or anything, but like I actually have a drum and a rattle, and so I would like try to make music out of it. And kind of for me, it's always about how can I awaken the child within, and whatever that looks like for somebody is like what I think they should do. And for me, sometimes it's photography or painting or writing or dancing or singing or just like being silly, laughing, you know?
Yeah. One of the great casualties of this period of expertise, right? Like we are in the age of experts where everybody's an expert on something.
Yeah.
We're all interconnected. So if you want to know about ballet, you can go watch a YouTube video of the world's premier ballet dancer, right? And so everybody is connected to the world's great experts. One of the great casualties is just regularness.
Yeah.
Right? Being a regular dancer or being a regular singer.
Yeah.
And to the point to where I don't feel comfortable singing at all because, you know, I'm not Mariah Carey. I'm not even an eighth of Mariah Carey. I love how
that came out for you.
But I mean, that's one of the shows that I want this studio here. Like, you know, I built this place to make not just Sam shows.
Yeah.
I want a show where some singer helps allow people to sing again and to sing badly. Because I don't think it's about the outcome. It's about that this is your voice. Yeah. And the same with dancing.
Yeah.
I have a great show I'm going to produce one day called Bad Dancing.
Nice.
You know when you've been to a party and everybody's kind of in wallflower mode? No one's really willing to kind of go into the dance area of that party.
Totally.
And then some human, in my experience, the greatest example was this slightly chubby, very silly woman who was not a great dancer, but she loved to dance, jumps into the middle of this party and just starts dancing kind of badly, really great in some ways. Yeah. But just having so much fun moving her body that it pulled the gravitational force of her fun pulled everybody into the 100%. Dance floor. And all of a sudden, everybody had permission to dance because it wasn't a dance contest. Yeah. It wasn't spectacular dancing happening. It was fun wedding dancing. Yeah, yeah. You know?
Yeah. Listen, the thing that comes to me right now is that, like, frankly, I'm not an expert in anything. You know, I know
Yeah,
a
me
lot.
neither.
I know a lot about a lot of shit, right? But like, I'm always in a place of, okay, there's always room. But the other thing too is that it's not really about anything other than the energy that you're bringing. Like, are you enjoying what you're doing? Are you inviting in like people's authentic expression? And to me, nothing else really matters. Like, I'm a terrible drawer. I can't paint for shit, you know? I'm like halfway decent at writing. I don't even know what that even means, but you know, I enjoy doing it. And I think for me, it's about inviting that child in and allowing it to be what it is. And, you know, by doing that, I feel like you give people permission to join you in that, right? So like, it didn't matter that she wasn't a great dancer. What she was doing was like putting the energy of like, I'm just being me and letting my inner creative come out through this form of expression. And people can sense that.
Yeah.
People can sense that.
It was a huge gift.
Yeah.
To that whole room of people, probably 20 people.
Yeah.
Right. So her magic.
Yeah.
Literally changed the whole vibe of 20
I love
people.
That. I love that so much.
20 people started bad dancing.
Fuck yeah.
So if that is you, if you are in the Bay Area and you have that gift, I will help produce your show. I will give
bad
you screen
dancing.
time.
I
Bad
love
dancing.
That's awesome.
Yeah, no, I am actively starting to turn on this whole expertise thing. Like, I think that there's some really cool aspects of it. I love information on demand. I like the information age. I feel like in some sense, as animals, we've gotten a little bit distracted by the shiniest thing in the room.
Agreed.
And I think that there's a lot of unintended consequences, like being able to WebMD all your symptoms, or you know, or just like talk to an expert right away. Like, it's great. I'm glad that people have access to medical care, those who do. But at the same time, like, the first starting place should be like checking in with your own body. Yeah. And trying to be like, oh, well, how do I feel? Has anything changed? And we're losing connection with very important parts of ourselves because they're not as good as the experts. They're not as shiny as the experts. So it might be our singing, our drawing, our ability to dance, our physique and our athleticism. You know, like, my athleticism is not impressive on Instagram. I don't compare to the world of athletes. But my athleticism is such an important part of my life. And learning how to run and jump and pull with this body is such a joy. And it can be ruined like that if I go into that kind of like checking in with what other people are doing, or what the experts look like, or what a perfectly developed physique is, or I think comparing yourself to somebody else is like the biggest disservice you can do to your own self-growth, because you're not, or not even self-growth, but just like enjoyment of life, because you're not doing it from a place of what feels authentic for you or what feels like progress for you. You're just, I don't know, it's just a form of external invalidation. Yeah.
It's I think it is one of the, it's a two-sided coin, right? Because on one hand, you know, you can feel inspired and really feel driven and passionate about what you see out there and other people who are like, you know, living out their life's passion or purpose, and feel inspired and drawn to that. But then if you take it too far and you start saying, well, because of that, I'm not doing enough, or I'm not enough, or I'm not worthy, or I'm not good enough. And then like the spiral, right? It's just like, it is a two-sided coin. That I think can be really dangerous.
When you think about some of the ways that you've grown, consciously, unconsciously, forced or natural, what are the big moments? Like, have you ever read Meditations by Marcus Aurelius?
No.
Okay.
I started it, but I never finished it.
Okay, so you read the first chapter?
Yeah.
I learned truthfulness from my father. I learned loyalty from so-and-so. What would you say are like the big, like, it's so hard to not picture you in such a healthy expression of a human, because I've only known you as like a together person. You've always held down a job. When things got tight, you worked harder, and you know it. But obviously, you learned these things along the way.
Yeah,
sounds like.
Yeah.
What are the big ones that come up to mind? Like if you and I were doing a video memoir, which is a project we do here for older clients who are trying to capture the legacy.
Nice.
What are these moments and lessons that you would want to get down in this interview? And we could just go, you know, one by one and just kind of get them on the record.
Yeah. Wow.
No pressure.
Yeah. No pressure. I think the first one that pops into my head is that I learned the importance of gentleness and love from my grandmother, and in her death, you know, I really learned that from her. When I think about things like friendship, I think about my experience in recovery, and there's not even one singular person. It's like the depth of friendship that I've experienced in recovery has like really taught me the value of showing up and doing what you say you're going to do. And
the herd.
Yeah. The herd. It's like the collective herd, you know? Yeah. And when I think about love, it's funny. I think about the love that I received unconditionally from people like my sponsor, or like people I have a few family members who are just like, they just like excrete love, you know, and I learned how to love unconditionally through them. My aunt and my uncle specifically, they're actually he's my second cousin, but I call him my uncle. You know, I remember coming out to them and over again, right? Like sexuality, then gender identity, then my name. And like every time the answer's always been like, we love you for who you are.
Yeah.
You know? So like that kind of stuff.
As you've been meditating on the masculine and learning from the divine masculine, as I would call it.
I call it divine masculine too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What would you say are the big lessons that you're learning from that energy and that meditation?
Yeah.
So I'm doing it too.
Yeah.
I was raised by a single mom feminist.
Yeah.
And so I am also meditating with my son is going to be 13 tomorrow.
Wow.
At the time of this recording.
Wow.
And, you know, I am actively trying to say, hey, this is, you know, where we're going is manhood.
Yeah.
This is what manhood looks like to me. So, but you know, you've always been such a thoughtful person.
Yeah. Yeah. I think for me, healthy masculinity is having the like those strong masculine characteristics without it, taking away from or objectifying other humans. And it's about exuding that, you know, warrior like strength and resilience without it hindering someone else's ability to move through the world. And I think about the Oriah Mountain Dreamer poem comes to mind for me.
I'm not familiar.
She writes like, it doesn't interest me what you do for a living. I want to know what you ache for, and if you dare to dream of meeting your heart's longing. It doesn't interest me how old you are. I want to know if you will risk looking like a fool for love, for your dream, for the adventure of being alive. It doesn't interest me what planets are squaring your moon. I want to know if you have touched the center of your own sorrow, if you have been opened by life's betrayals or become shriveled and closed from fear of further pain. I want to know if you can sit with pain, mine or your own, without moving to hide it or fade it or fix it. I want to know if you can be with joy, mine or your own, if you can dance with wildness and let the ecstasy fill you to the tips of your fingers and toes without cautioning us to be careful, be realistic, remember the limitations of being human. It doesn't interest me if the story you were telling me is true. I want to know if you can disappoint another to be true to yourself, if you can bear the accusation of betrayal and not betray your own soul, if you can be faithless and therefore trustworthy. I want to know if you can see beauty even when it is not pretty every day, and if you can source your own life from its presence. I want to know if you can live with failure, yours and mine, and still stand at the edge of the lake and shout to the silver of the full moon, yes. It doesn't interest me to know where you live or how much money you have. I want to know if you can get up after the night of grief and despair, weary and bruised to the bone, and do what needs to be done to feed the children. It doesn't interest me who you know or how you came to be here. I want to know if you will stand in the center of the fire with me and not shrink back. It doesn't interest me where or what or with whom you have studied. I want to know what sustains you from the inside when all else falls away. I want to know if you can be alone with yourself and if you truly like the company you keep in the empty moments. It's everything. Fucking everything. But, for me, it's like, can you stand by the fire next to somebody and not take away from their light and their presence and their humanity? Can you be in that like quiet strength, quiet but present strength without hindering someone else,
Yeah.
That for me is what I meditate on when I think about that, like healthy masculine, and removing all of the honestly, mostly at times it's about removing all of the societal ideals around it. What have we been taught and conditioned to believe are feminine traits and masculine traits, and what comes with that, power, really toxic power or oppression.
Masculine power and feminine power are different, but they are both very powerful forces.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, I think they're super subtly different, right? For me, feminine power is really is a little bit more nurturing, but the strength of it is no different than that of masculine power. It just shows up a little bit differently. And it doesn't, I don't mean that to say that masculine power can't also be nurturing. I think that that's also true.
I think it's definitely different though. I get the opportunity to teach young people outdoor skills. So it's really interesting to see them kind of closer to the source.
Yeah.
Right. And so you get to see the, one of the phrases that I love that you said is when I watch young boys play, they are ripping, roaring, stomping, competitive machines, you know?
Yeah.
At least that's one expression of it. But what is the healthiest expression of that is how do you put your absolute most physicality, most ambitious hunter energy into something without trashing the person to your left?
Yeah.
A healthy form of competition.
Yeah.
And, in a lot of ways, I feel like the male warrior archetype has taken over spaces that are very important to me, like various activism. And I feel why is this a fight? And part of me wishes that there was more healing, more compassion. And so I feel like part of this age is that, for a long time, things got done, kind of forced through with masculine energy. And now that's the go-to. Yeah. And I feel man, there's so much to learn from the other side that hasn't fully been expressed yet.
Yeah. For me, it comes from a scarcity mindset, right? We don't believe that there's enough space for each person. We believe that there's only a limited amount of pie. And if you don't get the majority of the pie, then you won't get it. But the truth is that there's enough pie, for all of us. And I think, it's the unhealthy expression of there's nothing wrong with being competitive or being driven or being, passionate and in pursuit of your passions in a way that feels, like you're making forward progress. I think what happens in the dynamic of, like you just mentioned, activism or just out in the world, people trying to progress in their careers or their lives, is that they take on this really unhealthy competitive energy. And in that unhealthy competitive energy, they believe in the scarcity mindset that they have to like cut everyone else down in order for them to succeed. And that's just not true. Like, it's just not true. So I think that for me is, been a really big lesson, because I used to be competitive. Like, I used to have this like, I have to like,
I bet there's still some
be the
competitor in there.
Of course there is. There's a lot of competitor within me still, but I don't exert that in like an unhealthy, like I have to like shame you or like knock you down in order for me to still be successful and driven.
Yeah.
And
what do you think are the great powers of the divine feminine?
Yeah, fierceness comes to mind. And I think there's
describe, like, dig deeper. What kind of fierceness are we talking about?
There's like let me choose my words.
It's tough. I mean, it's like, it's tricky territory to navigate.
Yeah.
Because you don't want to feel like, you don't want to put things in boxes or feel like they're not accessible to everyone.
Yeah. Yeah, for me, it's like really subtle. Describing it sometimes feels hard. But when I think about the divine feminine, I think about, I think about Mother Earth and like how resilient the earth is despite like, humans trashing it. Right. So like there's this like resiliency that comes from this place of nurturing, like generative beauty. And yeah, that's sort of what comes to mind for me as I like meditate on that. When I meditate on, the masculine and the feminine, a lot of times I go to the elements, I go to the elements. It's really easy for me to do that because I always really have a hard time putting like specific characteristics to the divine masculine and feminine. Because it, like you just said, it feels like I'm boxing it up and it doesn't feel like
it's easier to do in private with yourself as a tool.
For sure. Yeah.
Because you're not worried about offending anyone.
Yeah.
But I think it's, it's fun to have the dialogue.
Yeah. No, definitely. Yeah, I think it's, I always go to the elements, but there's like a nurturing generative nature to the divine feminine. And, it's funny because it came up a lot for me during my quest. I like was dreaming about the divine feminine every night, and that would show up in different forms. And I was like working a lot with my dreams during the time there. And even still now, it's something I've brought back with me. And, the divine feminine is, something that I feel like, nurtures and generates. There's like a fierce mama bear energy too, like protector.
Yeah, there's definitely a very specific, and I haven't put words to it yet, but there's a specific form of responsibility that is somehow in the house of femininity.
Yeah.
But you see it, as devoted of a father as I can possibly be. You see it hanging out with the parents.
Yeah,
where you'll see some of the lengths that these mothers can go to, where they're pulling from some kind of source that
totally.
I don't think can be taught personally, or even, this is going to sound really silly. If you watch some mothers hold the car seats casually, there's endurance in that.
Endurance is a good word.
That I could never match.
Yeah.
Ever. And
I love endurance.
I'm physically stronger.
Yeah.
Than they are.
Yeah.
If we go to the gym and we lift weights, I'm going to put up more weight for longer than
some of them. Yeah.
Than these moms.
Yeah.
Most of them.
I was gonna say, probably not all of them, but yeah.
No, I don't think the other moms have done steroids before, so I think I have an edge on them. Okay.
Well done. Yeah, endurance is. I like that word, endurance. There's like there's an endurance that's there. That's it feels like it's an endless resource almost.
Yeah, yeah. And then there's obviously creation, right? We're all woman born.
Yeah. Yeah. What a trip.
What a trip. Yeah.
What a trip.
But
like high, like severe high levels of pain tolerance.
Oh yeah. Oh,
like
without a doubt.
Resiliency and endurance. Yeah.
So as a non-expert in anything like myself, what are because I'm the same, I feel I identify with that so completely.
Yeah.
I don't want to be that guy.
Yeah.
You know,
for sure.
Small business guy or the depressed human guy or I love my brothers and sisters who are struggling with mental illness. Like it is something that gets me out of bed, is to meet other people that struggle in the way that I struggle and to try to make the most of this life, even if your baseline might be a little lower than other people. But I like to keep it open. I like to keep learning. I find a lot of energy in learning new things.
Yeah.
But so as a teacher, and you were always the person people called. That's what I remember most from hanging out with you, is that the phone was always ringing. People always wanted to hear your take on stuff.
Yeah. What
are the things that you want to do here during your time here on Earth?
On planet Earth. Yeah. I want to just touch on something you said about not being an expert. I think like there's a level, saying that there's like a level of openness to always be learning, which I think is the key to becoming knowledgeable deeply about things that you really care about. And so I love that distinction, right? Like, I think it's so important. That's why I say, like, yeah, I know a lot. I know a lot about a lot of things, but I'm not going to ever coin myself as an expert, because I always want to be in a space of like learning and growth, right? And that will continue to be a theme for me in my life here on planet Earth. I think the most important thing for me is to, I want to help people heal and come back to their bodies. I think that we, at least for me, my experience is that like I became detached from my body, not just as a result of trauma and like alcoholism and using drugs and all of that. But I think being a spirit trapped in a human body, like I just, there was too much for me to handle, and I became super detached and didn't, know how to be in my body. And as I like continue, walking through the world, I want to help people come back to that and find ways of healing their trauma, their intergenerational trauma, things that I've gotten to experience myself. And I want to write and create and continue to share my heart with people in ways that help them find what their passion, like not just their passion, but their purpose. Like, what are you here to do? And I think that my job here is to help people get closer to that, what that is for them. And I've recently gotten into mentorship under a shaman, and it's something that I feel really strongly about. And how do I bring that back to my people? Because my culture is not one that like looks at shamanism as a way that's tangible or useful. It's like completely devoid of that. And how do I bring people back to relating to themselves and relating to nature and relating to their bodies? And I think through that we can find collective healing, because I think the world is in a very sick place right now.
Super sick. And I think a lot of us disagree on how it's sick, but I think most people agree there's
some shit out there,
there's some shit out there.
And, I have a lot of compassion for that, but I'm also like really scared of what could happen. And I want to like help heal the collective sickness that's out there.
Yeah. I don't know what you prescribe. I've noticed in my own life, returning to my locality, and where my feet are
Yep.
and the community of where my feet are tends to be the quickest way I can get well.
100%.
When I'm plugged in, getting fed literally the countries and the world's problems intravenously.
Dude, seriously, it's nonstop.
And I put the phone down and I look at, who's volunteering to pull the weeds from the median? Because it's not always a city worker. Sometimes it's just people there.
Yeah.
Like, there's funny blocks around the corner that I see. Like, I think they're just some mom and dad.
Yeah.
And then when their kids come out and weed this little area, talk to the grocers and getting to know the people of this community. And as I walk down the street, I'm waving to people and saying hi. And I know my barista's name.
Yeah.
And trying to take that a step further and try to figure out what matters to the barista, and no longer see these people as just avatars and analogs for getting coffee, but also that in the grocer and in the barista and in the bus driver is a whole life's worth of things that matter to them and their own passions and dreams. And I honestly think that just returning to our location is this whole interconnected thing ain't working out so hot.
Yeah. I mean, we're so obsessed with like going into the clouds, like for lack of a better analogy. Right. And like, we really need to just be grounded. Like where are we currently? And how can we treat hello human, how can we treat another human being as a human being and, be interested in their humanity. I always think that like you think of a domino, like a domino board, right? You push down the domino next to you and there's a domino effect. Next thing you know, all the dominoes have been touched, right? And I think that there's some benefit to, the Eckhart Tolles of the world and, folks who have been around a while and have great wisdom to share. But how did they start? They probably started in their direct circles, their direct communities, right?
Yeah.
So I'm with you. I think, we think that we have to get to this place of like preaching up from a pedestal on the interwebs, but that's not really.
Yeah, I'm trying to make like little local hangout groups.
Yeah.
I think it starts there.
I completely agree. And I think, just coming back to the spaces that you impact around you, right? Like I have my recovery community, I have my spiritual community. Sometimes those are one and the same. I have my work, like my day job. I have my friends, my family. Like how can I show up in my fullest authentic expression and humanity and in my love and in my all those things and like practice those principles and those things in like all of the areas of my life that I have touched or can touch,
Yeah. Before I ask you the final question.
Okay.
Where, if people want to hang out with you or commune with you or learn more about what you're up to or what you're teaching, where can people find you?
Yeah.
What's the best way to connect with you?
Yeah. There's a couple of ways. Email is always really easy. It's indy@authenticdiscoveries.com. Nice. INDI.
That's a new web address.
Yeah. I just changed it. That's my email. And my Instagram is, I try not to spend a lot of time on it these days. So you can check it out. It's justlove.indy.
Nice.
So those are the best ways. I hang out in Santa Cruz, California. So if anyone's ever around or wants to connect.
Is that where you live now?
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
In a van? Down by the river?
Yeah, that whole thing. Not yet, but that's my dream, is down by the river in my van. So those are a couple ways to connect and probably the most direct ways to get a hold of me.
Cool.
Yeah.
All right. Now for the final question.
Okay.
I generally do this one way, but I'm actually going to reverse the direction of time.
Okay.
Normally I have you go back and talk to a previous version of yourself. I'm going to have you go forward and talk to a older version of yourself. This is going to be like a little time capsule.
Okay.
So you can.
I love this.
Yeah.
I love that you do this.
It's fun.
It's super fun.
Yeah. And for the people listening, you can do this on your own at home.
So helpful.
I talk to my past self a lot. And,
Same.
Maybe after this, I'll start talking to my future self a little bit.
I love that.
But if you could say a prayer or a small sermon or a wish for your future self that you'll one day get to listen to this recording and hear and know that you intended this and wished this and hoped for this for yourself moving forward in the world.
Wow.
What would that prayer or intention or sermon be? And you can just give it and we'll try to receive it for ourselves.
Yeah. It's always funny because whenever I'm in a current version of myself looking past at a prior version of myself, I always sort of chuckle because I'm like, oh, you were so cute. I always sort of sit in awe and wonder because there was so much that I didn't know yet. And so I guess for the future version of myself, I feel like they're in a time machine, like experiencing other things than I'm experiencing now. And so I think what I believe is that they're trickling bits and pieces of information to me as I'm ready to receive them. And so I think what I want to say is that I'm really grateful for the path forward. And my prayer for them is that I hope that they continue to risk looking like a fool for being fully alive, and that they risk looking like a fool for being fully in love with themselves and life and the people around them. And I pray that they continue to be kind and compassionate, yet fiercely unapologetic about who they are and what they're available for in the world and with other people, and that they always come from a place of equanimity and humility, even in the most challenging situations, and that finally they continue to nest all of the little inner ones that were rejected and abandoned for so long. They continue to nurture all of the little parts of them, the little creators, the little afraid ones, the little dancers, all of the parts of their soul that they've continued, I assume, to integrate. Because I'm sure that there's a lot more on the horizon than what I've already experienced. So yeah, that's my prayer.
Beautiful. Thank you, Indy.
You're welcome.
Hello, humans. Thank you for listening to the How to Human podcast. Thank you for your feedback and your reviews on iTunes. Please get in touch with us if you enjoyed the show. We're reachable. You can go to our website, hellohumans.co, and get in contact with us. We're growing. We're learning how to produce the best possible hour-ish segment that reminds you that being human is such a gift, and it's a mess. And sometimes it's great, and sometimes it's terrible. And the light of consciousness of being a human is a whole experience worth experiencing in itself, good and bad. So please don't be a stranger. If you'd like to get really intimate with us, join our Patreon. For any amount, you're part of the community, whether it's $1 or $50 or $200 a month. You get access to everything. We try to post the videos of these episodes. And we also have regular gatherings. We do a book club for now. We plan on doing more types of gatherings in the future, but We do a really sweet book club. We read a book together. It's a great little ragtag group of people who come together to be together in the human experience. You can also follow us on Instagram if you like getting little snippets of these conversations or things that we're working on. And you can write us a review on iTunes, which lasts forever and is really fun for me to wake up to on Mondays and read the new reviews of the podcast. So if you enjoyed the show, it'd mean a lot to me if you took the time to review it. I know it's kind of a pain in the butt. How to Humans on iTunes or the podcast app. Please, I would love your review. If you enjoy this and would like to take an active role in producing new episodes and also influencing new episodes by gathering with me in the book club and helping me sort out some of the ideas that I'm having and our other members of the book club are having, please become a patron. www.patreon.com/howtohuman. I hope to see you there. I hope you have an amazing rest of your day. And until next time, be well. This was recorded at Square One Studio in San Anselmo, California. For more information, you can go to square1.studio. That's a website. You're just going to have to trust me. Or you can check it out. Come say hi.